Good evening. Um, I'll pull the microphone down a little bit because the crowd is not as big as it will be right now. My name is Tracy Lopman. I'm the superintendent of Maricopa Unified School District. Thank you for spending your evening here in our district governing boardroom for the Just the Facts presentation regarding the continuation of the maintenance and operation override. This override has been in place, was voter approved in 2016, and tonight's event is designed to help our community understand the details behind the continuation of the override. It's our Just the Facts presentation. Before we start, I want to be able to share some really good news about Maricopa Unified School District. Uh, First of all, we've expanded our preschool because of our program is in such high demand. We started out with 3 classrooms a couple years ago, and now we're up to 5 classrooms in the district. That's a full day academic program for kids in the city of Maricopa. And one of the great features of that program is it's led by certified teachers, and that's a distinguishing feature about the Maricopa Community Preschool. We're also happy to report that construction of the second high school, scheduled to open in July of 2022, is on time and on budget. And we have 2 proposed career academies. That would be the STEM Academy and a Leadership Academy. And if you're interested in staying up to date on that construction, you can visit the MUSD website under the district, and you'll see a location there for construction. And if you click on that, you get aerial photos and all kinds of additional good information. We're very excited that we have a one-to-one technology initiative. That means every student has a laptop. And over the past couple of years, as we navigate through the pandemic, having this technology has been critical to our students' and staff success. That's definitely good news. Also, Maricopa Virtual Academy is growing, and we love being able to offer this option to the community. Last year, many families realized that an online model of education worked for their families. And so we wanted to make sure that we could continue to offer that option for our families. We're up to about 400 students in Maricopa Virtual Academy. Finally, almost finally, we are very proud of the class sizes we have in Maricopa Unified School District. And thanks to the voter-approved override, we're able to maintain what I call enviable class sizes. And that means that our teachers are able to establish long-term relationships with their students, whether it's, whether they talk about the loss of that first tooth with those little ones, all the way to high school graduation. It's those low class sizes that allow our teachers to be effective and also build lasting relationships. And then finally, we know that not everyone has kids or grandkids in Maricopa Unified School District, but we're really good neighbors to all of our residents in the city of Maricopa. We place a priority on fiscal responsibility, and we maintain our facilities to make sure that we add value to the community. And finally, we have an emphasis on workforce development for the city of Maricopa. And so even if you don't have kids in our schools, everyone who lives and works in the city of Maricopa benefits from the work that we're doing in our school district. So, with that, I want to, first of all, I want to introduce Mr. Jacob Harmon. He's the Director of Business Services. He will be assisting with our conversation this evening as well. And remember, this is a factual presentation about the override, the voter-approved override. And this is an opportunity for our citizens in Maricopa to maintain that local control over their tax dollars. And an override is a voter-approved extension of the budget formula that our state has for public education. And with voter approval, we're able to go 10% over that budget. And so that's why we are here tonight. We've had this override in place since 2016. We have three main objects. Well, excuse me. It's important to emphasize that because this has been in place since 2016, this is not a new tax increase. So voters are already investing in our schools. Mr. Harmon?
Yeah, so as Dr. Loebman mentioned, the override's been in place since 2016. Overrides, there's two types of overrides. You could have an M&O override or a capital override. We currently have a 10% M&O override, and they're good for 7 years. The first 5 years are fully funded, and then in year 6, it decreases by a third. Year 7, it decreases by a third, and then it goes away. So we're currently in year 5. We're allowed to go out for a continuation, so that if passed in year 6, it starts at year 1 again. We don't have that reduction in funding. So it's not an increase in the tax rate, it's a continuation. We have about $5 million of budget capacity for the M&O override. The reduction that would happen next year would be about $1.7 million. What's that? The M&O override it's about $5 million a year is what the override generates, our 10% override. And the reduction for next year would be about 1.7 million, about a third of our override funding. We'd like to talk about fiscal responsibility. We go out for a number of awards. Every year we have a mandatory annual audit, and we go a step further than that and get a CAFR. It's a Certified Annual Financial Report. And then through GFOA, we get a Certificate of Excellence. The district's done that for a number of years now. We also go after a number of grants through the School Facilities Board, our building renewal grants. Last year we had over $1 million of grants come in from the state so that we can maintain our facilities without going out for bonds or capital overrides to impact our local taxpayers. We also, for the last 5 years, we have increased our percentage of spending in the classroom. Every year we have increased that. We're on track to do over 70% of all of our spending in the classroom this year.
You're probably wondering what the override funds. We have three main targets for override funding. The first one is an investment in technology. And it's not just devices, but it's also staff that help implement that technology. When you have 8,000 devices and about another 500 or 600 staff devices, you need the staff support to make sure that those devices, that technology is used to its full potential. So the assistance that the M&O override gave our district, allowed us to update the technology of our teachers. Many of our teachers were using technology that was 10 years old and slow and not functioning properly. And it also helped us advance towards that 1-to-1 ratio of student to device student to device ratio much more quickly. And of course, if you again think about the challenges of the pandemic, having that 1-to-1 ratio helped our students stay current in their studies. So, and now because of how seamlessly our transitions were last year with in-person and distance learning and the experiences that kids and teachers had with technology last year, so many of our students have stuck with that program in their enrollment in Maricopa Virtual Academy. So the investment in technology is significant. We also invest in keeping class sizes small. You can see that before the override was passed in 2016, our targets are listed, are shown there on that left-hand column. Targets before the 2016 override. And can you believe we had a target of 35 at 5th grade and a target of 29 for kinder? Those are high. After the override, the board approved targets that are certainly much more attractive, allows teachers to be much more effective, and certainly build those lasting relationships. And as you can see, at the end of the 2020 school year, all of our class sizes were below those targets. That was the average class size at the end of the 1920 school year. And then finally, we invest in the RAM Academy. The RAM Academy is an alternative program that gives students another pathway to graduate from high school. The RAM Academy gives kids an alternative setting, different schedule that may work better for them and ensure that they can, have the future of their dreams. Over 100 students have graduated directly from Maricopa Academy, but even more have been successful in RAM Academy and then returned to Maricopa High School so that they could graduate with their class. So continuing this program is vital for the success of our students.
So one of the frequently asked questions is, what does this cost our homeowners? So the override is on the secondary tax rate, and it costs about 38 cents a day per $100,000 of assessed valuation. It's about $140 a year. The latest data shows that the average assessed valuation, which is the taxable value for a house in Maricopa this year, is $133,000, to put that in perspective. And then, so what are the consequences if the override doesn't pass? So I mentioned earlier that we would lose about $1.7 million of funding next year, and then again the following year. Then we would lose the full $5 million by what would be year 7 of the override. And Dr. Lobman spelled out everything that this funds. So it's $5 million, about $500,000 goes to RAM Academy. We give $500,000 of the override to technology every year, about half to staffing and half to actual student devices. And the other $4 million is teachers. It's those class sizes. So it funds about 70 staff, K-12. So that's what the override funds. And then we're often asked, what does that staffing look like at each site? So this graphic just shows how many teachers at each one of our sites are funded by the override. So at our elementaries, it's about 6 per site. I think there's one or two anomalies there, but it's about 6 per site. It's almost 1 per grade level at each of our elementary schools, and then about 20 spread out from our middle schools and our high schools.
We are not the only ones asking our community to support our schools. In order for Maricopa Unified School District to be competitive with neighboring school districts, the additional funding coming through an override is necessary. As you can see, uh, neighboring districts in Maricopa County and in Pinal County all have overrides. They have Pinal County, we're looking at 10% overrides like we have. And then in Maricopa County, Kyrene, Chandler, Tempe L, and Tempe Union all have 15% overrides. And we want to make sure that kids who live in Maricopa choose to go to school in Maricopa, right in our schools in Maricopa Unified School District. So, in order for us to maintain our competitive edge, uh, that override funding is necessary. This is an all-mail election. That means registered voters will receive a ballot in the mail. Ballots are going to be put in the mail by our Pinal County elections on October 6th. And Pinal County Elections recommends that voters get that back in the mail on October 26th. Now, there will be locations around the city that um, voters can deposit that ballot in. Some people like to do their democracy in person, and so those locations will uh, be publicized. But it's an all-mail election. You can also put it right in the mailbox. So, what questions can we answer? Well, before we get to questions, I want to thank Mrs. Anderson. She is a MUSD governing board member and certainly a graduate of Maricopa High School as well, former teacher. Thank you for being here tonight. So, what other questions might any of you have?
And here, let me get you a mic, or you can come up to the stand. We're in a small room, but we're streaming this, and if you don't speak in the mic, they don't hear you at home.
As I have talked a little bit about the override to some of my neighbors, I'm new to the community, so I don't have a lot of information about Maricopa in general. But as I have asked, because I like to have information, one of the things that they have shared with me is that the school should not need to have an override because there are so many people coming in and they're paying so much money for the houses and there are so many kids coming into the school that why should they need an override? So nobody came to the meeting, so I guess I'll ask.
It's a great question. We showed exactly what the override funds, its class sizes. We have an equalization funding formula in the state that really supports class sizes in that 30 to 35 range. State of Arizona is 48th in the country in per pupil funding. So we're the 48th worst funded state next to our neighbors to the north, Idaho and Utah. And so the override really allows us to have smaller class sizes. It allows us to invest a little bit into technology and have this alternative Graham Academy. Our neighbors to the north, as Dr. Lohman mentioned, have 15% M&O overrides, which cost the community more money. And that would give us an additional $2.5 million if we had comparable overrides. That'd be additional staffing. So the funding formula is equal outside of overrides. So communities that have M&O overrides, capital overrides, and bonds, their per pupil revenue is significantly higher, and so the level of education that they can offer is different. So funding really matters, and we're really grateful for the community to have passed this override in 2016, and we're asking for a continuation.
So, Mr. Harmon, does housing development impact the school's budget? Or what changes the school's budget? Is it housing development or enrollment?
That's a great question. So our funding formula is based on a per pupil allotment. So as the community grows, as we capture those students in enrollment, we get additional funding capacity.
But it doesn't mean that because a subdivision has 1,000 houses that we're going to get funding associated from the 1,000 houses. We are only funded by the students who enroll in the school district. So if one of those households doesn't have any children, that won't impact our funding. So we often have to clarify that for our community. because that's just not the way schools are funded in the state of Arizona. Great question, though. Allowed us to clarify that.
And we have a question from one of our online participants. The question is, other school districts do have overrides, but they have a much lower student-teacher ratio than Maricopa's local schools. What is being done to help increases in classes and buildings?
So you saw our student-teacher ratio. It's really not a student-teacher ratio. You saw our class sizes in elementary. Again, the averages are generally below those targets. So we're really proud of that, and recognize that every dollar that we can put in the classroom is a benefit, to the students and the stability of the teacher. That's one of the things that makes it attractive to work in Maricopa are those class sizes and the continued emphasis that we have on keeping them low.
And we have a second question. The question is, does the Maricopa School District already have vacant classrooms but not teachers?
Well, we have some vacant classrooms in a couple of our schools. We have some vacancies, meaning we do have some positions that are unfilled. We have some positions that are filled by a highly effective, loyal, long-term guest teacher or substitute. But those issues with staffing are nationwide right now. That's not a Maricopa thing. And actually, we started the year with nearly every classroom filled with an appropriately certified teacher. So we've between our HR department and our principals pounding the pavement and finding the best people to fill our classrooms creatively, resourcefully. We're actually ahead of the curve when it comes to highly qualified, appropriately certified teachers in our classrooms.
And if it's a capacity question, do we have space for the growth? I'm not sure if that's what they're asking, but yeah, we have several years worth of capacity at our elementary level. But we keep a close eye on that. This growing community, we're building a high school now, and eventually we will need to build a middle school and an elementary school, but we're many years out from that capacity-wise.
Good questions. What else can we clarify? Please.
Thank you for your question. Growth presents opportunities and challenges. So as we have students coming into the district, that means we have to have more staff in order to accomplish our goal of educating each of those children. So yes, growth works in our favor, but there's also a cost involved whenever we have that influx of students into our classroom. Again, I think you've seen from the slides tonight, we do a great job of keeping class sizes as low as possible, and we can only accomplish that by, again, utilizing those funds for the kids that are coming in, but then also being wise consumers of the override funds that we already have.
That was Mr. Beckett, Director of Human Resources. Well, if there are no additional questions, I want to thank you again for spending your evening with us so that you could learn more about the continuation of the MUSD M&O override. Thank you.